I thought it was a wrong number until he said, "I'm in front of your door." Little did I know that answering a stranger's call would thrust me into the dangerous world of Seattle's most powerful mafia boss. What would you do if one mistaken connection changed everything about who you thought you could become? I never meant for any of this to happen. My life was so normal before that phone call. Every morning, I woke up at 6:30 to the sound of my alarm clock beeping next to my bed. My tiny apartment on Cedar Street was nothing special. Just one room with a kitchen in the corner and a bathroom that was barely big enough to turn around in. The rent was still too much for what I made answering phones at the law office, but it was all I could find. My boss, Mr. Hartman, never remembered my name. "Hey you," he'd call across the office. "More coffee?" 3 years I'd worked there, and still I was just the coffee girl. I brought him his black coffee with 1 sugar every day at exactly 9:15, and he barely looked up from his papers. After work, I'd stop at the grocery store on the corner and buy whatever was on sale. My fridge was always half empty. I'd eat my dinner alone, sitting on my second-hand couch that sagged in the middle, watching old shows on my laptop. Sometimes my friend Jen would call and talk about her dates or her dreams of moving to California someday. "You should come with me, Emma," she'd say. "We could get a place near the beach." I always laughed. With what money? My student loans took half my paycheck, and the rest barely covered my bills. At night, I'd look out my window at the city lights and wonder if this was all life would ever be. Just waking up, going to work, coming home, going to bed. Over and over like a wheel spinning in place. The worst part was the loneliness. It sat with me at dinner. It followed me to bed. I tried not to think about how long it had been since someone hugged me or even touched my hand. My mom lived 3 states away, and we only talked on holidays now. Dad had been gone for 10 years. I had a plant on my windowsill, a small cactus that needed almost no care. Even it was struggling to stay alive. I'd look at its drooping arms and think maybe we were the same, both of us just hanging on. The ceiling in my bathroom leaked when it rained. I kept a blue bucket under the drip. The sound of water hitting plastic would keep me up on stormy nights. Drip, drip, drip. Like a clock counting down my life. On that Tuesday, I went to bed early. Work had been harder than usual. Mr. Hartman had yelled at me for mixing up some papers, and I'd spilled coffee on my only good shirt. I was so tired that I forgot to put my phone on silent. I never leave my ringer on. If I had remembered that one small thing, everything would be different now. I would still be Emma Wilson, the invisible girl with the leaking ceiling and the dying cactus. But I didn't remember. And at exactly 11:42 that night, my phone rang in the dark. The ringing of my phone cut through the dark room like a knife. It was so loud in the quiet of my apartment. I reached out with sleepy fingers, knocking over my glass of water. Cold liquid spilled across my nightstand as I grabbed my phone. "Hello?" My voice was rough with sleep. The clock on my wall showed 11:42 p.m. "I have what you asked for." The voice on the other end was deep, with words that rolled like smooth stones. A man's voice, but not one I knew. "I'm outside your door right now." My heart jumped in my chest. I sat up straight, suddenly wide awake. The sheets pooled around my waist as I stared into the darkness of my apartment. "I think you have the wrong number," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was silence for 3 long seconds. I could hear the man breathing. When he spoke again, his voice was colder. "Is this 555 or 187? "No," I said. "This is 555-0178. You're 1 number off." Another silence. I could almost feel him thinking through the phone. "What's your name?" he asked finally. I should have hung up. I know that now. But something in his voice made me answer. "Emma Wilson." "Emma Wilson?" he repeated slowly, like he was writing it down in his head. "Where do you live, Emma Wilson. A chill ran up my back. I'm not telling you that. Smart girl. His voice had changed. There was something almost like respect in it now. But I need to know something. Have you seen anyone watching your building tonight? Anyone sitting in a car outside? Anyone following you home? What? No. Why would someone be watching me? My fingers gripped the phone tighter. Listen to me carefully, Emma Wilson. Someone might come looking for the person I was supposed to meet. They might have this number. They might think you're her. The air in my room suddenly felt too thin to breathe. What are you talking about? Who are you? That's not important right now. What's important is that you stay inside tonight. Lock your door. Lock your windows. Don't answer if anyone knocks. You're scaring me, I whispered. Good. You should be scared. This isn't a joke. I'm going to hang up now, I said. My hand was shaking. Wait, he started to say, but I pressed the red button on my screen. The call ended. I sat in my bed, staring at my phone as if it might bite me. The screen light lit up my face in the dark room. Outside, rain started to tap against my window. Tap, tap, tap. Like fingers trying to get in. It was just a wrong number, I told myself. Just some mix-up. But why had he asked about people watching me? Why had he told me to lock my doors? I slid out of bed, my bare feet hitting the cold floor. I moved to my apartment door and checked the lock. It was already turned. I added the chain, the metal sliding into place with a small click. My apartment felt smaller now. The shadows deeper. I went to the window and looked down at the street 4 floors below. It was empty except for the usual parked cars. No one sitting there watching. No strange figures in the rain. Just as I was about to turn away, a black car pulled up to the curb. Its headlights cut off. I couldn't see who was inside through the rain-streaked glass. My phone buzzed in my hand. A text message from the same number. Don't answer your door, I'll handle this. I backed away from the window, heart pounding in my ears. Handle what? What was happening? Then, 3 sharp knocks hit my door. I froze, staring at the door as if I could see through it. The knocks came again, harder this time. Emma Wilson? A voice called. Not the voice from the phone. This one was rougher, with a strange accent. Open up. We need to talk. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. We know you're in there, the voice said. Open the door, or we open it for you. My phone buzzed again. Another text. Don't open it, I'm coming up. I heard a sound at my door, like metal scraping metal. They were trying to pick the lock. I looked around frantically for something, anything I could use to defend myself. I grabbed my table lamp, unplugging it from the wall. The lock clicked. The door started to open, but caught on the chain. Break it, the voice ordered. Then there were other sounds. Footsteps running up the hall, a shout, the crash of something heavy hitting the wall outside my door. I backed up until I hit the far wall, holding my lamp like a club. The sounds of fighting filled the hallway. Grunts, the thud of fists hitting flesh. A cry of pain. Then silence. I waited, not daring to move. My whole body was trembling. A soft knock came at my door. Emma Wilson? It was the voice from the phone. It's safe now. Can you open the door? How do I know it's really you? My voice came out as barely a whisper. You said your number was 555-0178, 1 digit off from who I was trying to call. Slowly, I approached the door. I put my eye to the peephole. A man stood there, tall and broad-shouldered in a black coat. His dark hair was wet from the rain. His face was strong, with a straight nose and dark eyes that seemed to look right through the door at me. I didn't see anyone else in the hallway behind him. What happened? I asked through the door. The men who were trying to get in are gone, he said simply, but they'll be back. I need to come in and explain some things to you. Why should I trust you? He gave a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. Because I just saved your life, Emma Wilson. And because right now, I'm the only one who can keep you safe. I stood there for a long moment, my hand on the chain lock. Everything in me said not to open the door, not to let this stranger in, but something else, something I couldn't explain, made my fingers slide the chain free. I opened the door, and with it, I opened the door to a whole new world that would change everything I thought I knew about life, about danger, and about myself. He walked into my apartment like he owned it, his shoes making soft sounds on my worn carpet. I backed away, still holding the lamp in my hands. The light from the hallway fell across his face, showing a small cut above his right eye. A drop of blood slid down his cheek. "You can put that down," he said, looking at my lamp. "I'm not going to hurt you." I didn't lower my makeshift weapon. "Who are those men?" He closed the door behind him and locked it. Then he walked to my window and looked down at the street. "They work for someone who wants to find me," he said. "And now they think you might know me." "But I don't know you." My voice came out too loud in the quiet room. He turned to look at me. His eyes were so dark they looked black in the dim light. "My name is Marco Ricci." He said it like I should know who he was. I didn't. "Why did they come here?" I asked. "Because of the phone number mix-up. They were following me. They saw me call someone. They must have gotten the number somehow and thought you were my contact." He ran a hand through his wet hair. "I'm sorry about this. It's my fault." I finally put down the lamp, my arms tired from holding it up. "So now what? They'll just go away, right? They know I'm not who they're looking for." Marco shook his head slowly. "It's not that simple. These men, they don't give up easily. And now they've seen me come here to help you." A cold feeling spread through my stomach. What does that mean? It means they'll be watching you. They'll think you're important to me. I sank down onto my couch, suddenly feeling very tired and very scared. This can't be happening. Marco stayed by the window, his eyes on the street below. "I need to make some calls," he said. "Is that okay?" I nodded, not knowing what else to do. He pulled out a shiny black phone and spoke in a language I didn't understand. His voice was low and fast. I caught only one word I knew. Problema. Problem. Yes, this was definitely a problem. While he talked, I really looked at him for the first time. He wore a black suit under his coat. It looked expensive, much nicer than anything I'd ever owned. His watch gleamed gold when he moved his wrist. Everything about him screamed money and power. "Who are you?" I asked when he finished his call. "Really?" He put his phone away and turned to face me. For a moment, he seemed to be deciding how much to tell me. "I run some businesses in this city," he said finally. "What kind of businesses?" "Import, export, restaurants, clubs." Something clicked in my brain. "Ricci? Like Ricci's downtown? The fancy Italian place?" A small smile touched his lips. "Yes, that's one of mine." I'd walked past that restaurant many times, looking in at the white tablecloths and crystal glasses. A dinner there would cost me a week's pay. "These men," I said slowly, "the ones looking for you, are they business rivals?" His smile faded. "Something like that." "Are you in some kind of trouble?" "I'm always in some kind of trouble, Emma Wilson." The way he said my full name sent a shiver up my spine. Not fear, exactly. Something else. "You should pack a bag," he said suddenly. "What?" "A bag. Clothes for a few days. You can't stay here tonight." I stood up, anger pushing through my fear. "I'm not going anywhere with you. I don't even know you." "You don't have to come with me. You can go to a friend's house, or a hotel. But you can't stay here. This is my home. And they know where it is. His voice was firm but not unkind. Those men will be back. Maybe not tonight, but soon. And next time, I might not get here in time. The truth of his words hit me like cold water. Those men had tried to break into my apartment. Who knew what they would have done if Marco hadn't stopped them? I could go to my friend Jen's, I said weakly. Marco nodded. That's good. Pack quickly. Moving like someone in a dream, I went to my closet and pulled out a small suitcase. I threw in clothes without really looking at them. Toothbrush, phone charger, the framed photo of my mom and dad that sat on my dresser. When I came back out, Marco was by the window again. There's a car waiting downstairs, he said. Black Audi. The driver's name is Tony. He'll take you wherever you want to go. You're not coming? He shook his head. I need to clean up this mess. Make sure those men don't find you again. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt a strange pull, like I didn't want him to go. How will I know when it's safe to come back? Marco reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. It was plain white with just a phone number printed in black. Call this when you're settled at your friend's place. Someone will always answer. If you see anything strange, anyone watching you, call right away. I took the card, our fingers brushing for a second. His were warm despite the cold rain. I'll have someone keep an eye on your friend's place tonight, he added, just to be safe. Why are you helping me? I asked. This is your problem, not mine. He looked at me for a long moment before answering. Because I brought this to your door, Emma. And I don't leave innocent people to deal with my messes. There was something in his eyes when he said it. Something that made me think there was more to Marco Ricci than fancy restaurants and expensive suits. Thank you, I said quietly. He nodded once, then moved to the door. The car will wait until you're ready. Take your time. I watched him reach for the doorknob, and suddenly I didn't want to be alone. Wait, I said. How do I know I can trust your driver? Or you, for that matter? Marco turned back. You don't. But right now, I'm the only one who knows what you're up against. He was right. As scary as Marco might be, the men who tried to break in were scarier. I'll go down with you, I decided. The ride down in the elevator was silent. I could smell his cologne, something clean and expensive. My suitcase seemed shabby next to his polished shoes. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet, reflecting the city lights. A black car waited at the curb, engine running. A big man in a dark suit stood beside it. He nodded to Marco, but didn't speak. Marco opened the car door for me. Remember, call the number when you get there. I slid into the back seat, the leather cool against my legs. Will I see you again? The question surprised me as much as it seemed to surprise him. Do you want to? He asked. I didn't know how to answer that. Part of me wanted to run as far from Marco Ricci as possible. Another part, a part I didn't understand, wanted to know more about this dangerous man who had crashed into my life. I don't know, I said honestly. He gave me that same small smile. Well, Emma Wilson, I have a feeling our paths will cross again. As the car pulled away from the curb, I looked back through the window. Marco stood in the rain, watching until we turned the corner and disappeared into the night. 3 days at Jen's apartment felt like 3 months. I jumped at every sound and kept the blinds closed all day. Jen tried to cheer me up, but she didn't know the whole story. I'd told her only that there had been a break-in attempt at my building and I needed a place to stay. I couldn't bring myself to tell her about Marco. You should call the police, she said on the 3rd morning as she got ready for work. I did. I lied. They said they'd patrol the area. She didn't look like she believed me, but she didn't push. That was one of the best things about Jen. She knew when to let things be. After she left for work, I sat alone in her small living room, staring at the business card Marco had given me. I'd called the number that first night, like he'd asked. A man with a gruff voice had answered, asked for my location, and hung up after I told him. Nothing else. No Marco. A part of me was disappointed. Why hadn't he called to check on me? Did he really care about keeping me safe? Or had he just dumped me on Jen to get rid of a problem? I was still holding the card when someone knocked on Jen's door. My heart jumped into my throat. No one had buzzed from downstairs. No one should have been able to get into the building. Moving quietly, I tiptoed to the door and looked through the peephole. A woman stood there, maybe 50 years old, with gray hair tied back in a neat bun. She wore a cleaning uniform and held a bucket of supplies. "Cleaning service," she called through the door. "Ms. Taylor asked for a deep clean today." Jen hadn't mentioned anything about a cleaning service. I didn't open the door. "Ms. Taylor isn't home," I said. "She said her roommate would be here. I can come back later if that works better for you." Something felt off. Jen never hired cleaners. She could barely afford her share of the rent. "I'll have her call to reschedule," I said, backing away from the door. There was silence for a moment. Then, "Are you Emma Wilson?" My blood turned to ice. How did this woman know my name? I didn't answer. I reached for my phone and the business card, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial the number. The woman knocked again, harder this time. "Ms. Wilson, I just need to ask you a few questions about Marco Ricci." The phone rang once, twice. Pick up, I thought. "Yes?" The same gruff voice answered. "There's someone at Jen's door," I whispered. "A woman. She knows my name and she's asking about Marco. Stay inside, don't open the door." The line went dead. The knocking stopped. I heard footsteps walking away down the hall. I peered through the peephole again, but the hallway was empty. 20 minutes later, as I sat huddled on Jen's couch, my phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello?" I answered, my voice shaky. "It's me." Marco's deep voice filled my ear. "Are you okay?" "Who was that woman? How did she find me?" "She works for the Castelli family. They're business rivals. She said she had questions about you." "I'm sure she did." His voice was tight. "I'm sending a car for you. Be ready in 5 minutes." "Where am I going?" "Somewhere safe." He hung up before I could ask anything else. I quickly stuffed my things back into my suitcase and scribbled a note for Jen. "Emergency with my mom. Had to leave town for a few days. Will call you. Sorry." The black car was already waiting when I got downstairs. The same driver, Tony, held the door open without a word. This time, the car took me across town, up into the hills where the big houses stood behind tall gates. We stopped at one of the biggest, a modern glass and stone building with a view of the entire city. Tony punched a code into a keypad, and the gates swung open. The driveway curved up to the house, lined with small lights that glowed like stars in the ground. Marco was waiting at the front door, his tall figure outlined against the bright light from inside. He wore a dark blue suit that fit him perfectly, and his hair was neatly combed back from his face. He looked like he belonged on a magazine cover. "Welcome to my home," he said, stepping aside to let me in. The inside of the house took my breath away. The floors were polished wood so shiny I could see my face in them. The walls were white with huge paintings that looked old and important. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city lights. "This is where you live?" I asked, feeling very small with my cheap suitcase. "One of my homes," he said, like it was the most normal thing in the world to have more than one house. A woman in a black dress appeared silently at his side. "Show Ms. Wilson to the guest suite, please, Maria," Marco said. "And then bring us some coffee in the living room." Maria nodded and gestured for me to follow her up a wide staircase. The guest room was bigger than my whole apartment. It had its own bathroom with a tub I could practically swim in, and the bed was covered in white sheets that felt like clouds when I touched them. "Dinner is at 8, Maria said in a soft accent. "Mr. Ricci likes to dine on the terrace when the weather is good." When she left, I sat on the edge of the huge bed trying to make sense of what was happening. A week ago, I was just Emma Wilson. Nobody special. Now I was staying in a mansion because people were looking for me. Because of Marco Ricci. After washing my face and changing into the nicest clothes I had packed, a simple blue dress that suddenly seemed very plain, I went back downstairs. I found Marco in a room with big leather chairs and walls lined with books. He stood by a window, talking on his phone in that language I didn't understand. When he saw me, he ended his call. "Better?" he asked. I nodded. "Thank you for coming to get me, but I still don't understand what's happening. Who are these people looking for me? What do they want?" Marco sighed and gestured for me to sit. He sat across from me, his dark eyes studying my face. "Do you know who I am, Emma? Really? You said you run businesses. Restaurants." "Yes. But there's more to it than that." He leaned forward, his hands clasped between his knees. "My family has been in this city for 3 generations. We protect certain interests, help people who need things done quietly." A chill ran through me as I began to understand. "You're in the Mafia," I whispered. He didn't deny it. "We prefer family business. The Castelli family is trying to move in on what's ours. The night I called you by mistake, I was supposed to meet someone important. Someone who was going to give me information about Castelli's plans. And they thought I was that person," I said slowly. "Yes. And now they think you might know something valuable." I should have been scared. I should have run from this house and this man. But instead, I felt a strange calm. At least now I knew the truth. "Will they keep looking for me?" "Not after tonight," Marco said. "I've arranged a meeting with Castelli. We'll come to an understanding." The way he said it made me think this understanding wouldn't be pleasant. I shivered despite the warmth of the room. Maria brought coffee on a silver tray, the cups so thin I could see the dark liquid through them. Marco took his black. I added sugar to mine, 3 spoonfuls that made him smile a little. "Sweet tooth?" he asked. "Life's bitter enough already," I said without thinking. His smile widened, showing white teeth and making lines appear at the corners of his eyes. It changed his whole face, made him look younger, less dangerous. "I like that," he said. "Life's bitter enough already. I might use that." We sat in silence for a moment, sipping our coffee. It was the best coffee I'd ever tasted. "How long do I have to stay here?" I asked finally. "Just until I know it's safe. A few days at most." He hesitated, then added, "Unless you want to stay longer." I looked up sharply. There was something in his eyes. Something that made my heart beat faster. "Why would I want to stay longer?" "I don't know, Emma Wilson. Why would you?" Before I could answer, the door opened and a man entered. He was older than Marco, with silver at his temples and cold eyes that looked right through me. "Boss, the car's ready," he said to Marco. "Castelli's expecting us at 9. Marco nodded and stood up. "Emma, this is Vito. He's my right hand. He'll be staying here while I'm gone. If you need anything, ask him." Vito didn't smile or nod. He just looked at me like I was a problem he hadn't figured out how to solve yet. Marco put on a dark coat and straightened his tie. "I'll be back late. Don't wait up." As he walked past my chair, he paused and put his hand on my shoulder. His touch was warm through the thin fabric of my dress. "Everything will be fine," he said softly. "Trust me." And the strange thing was, I did trust him. This man I barely knew. This dangerous man who lived in 2 worlds. One of fancy restaurants and beautiful houses, the other of threats and midnight meetings. I trusted him more than I'd trusted anyone in a long time. I watched from the window as his car drove away through the gates, disappearing into the night. I didn't know it then, but everything was about to change between us. Marco didn't come back that night. I fell asleep waiting, curled up in a chair by the window. When I woke up, sunlight was streaming through the glass and someone had put a soft blanket over me. My neck hurt from sleeping sitting up, and my mouth was dry. "Good morning." Marco's voice made me jump. He sat across from me in the other chair, watching me with those dark eyes. He wore the same clothes as last night, but his tie was gone, and his shirt was wrinkled. A purple bruise darkened his jaw. I sat up straight, the blanket falling to my lap. "What happened to your face?" He touched the bruise lightly. "Negotiations got a little heated, but it's settled now." "With the Castelli family? They'll leave me alone?" Marco nodded. "They know you're not involved. They know you're under my protection." Those last words hung in the air between us. Under his protection. What did that mean? "So I can go home now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Something flickered in his eyes. "Not yet. I want to be sure it's safe." "I have to go to work. I can't lose my job, Marco." He waved his hand like my job was a small thing that could be brushed away. "I called your office, told them you had a family emergency. They're giving you 2 weeks paid leave." I stared at him. "You did what? How did you even know where I work?" "I have resources, Emma, and connections." Anger bubbled up inside me. "You can't just take over my life like that." "I'm trying to keep you safe." "By making decisions for me? Without even asking?" He stood up, his tall frame blocking the sunlight. For the first time, I saw how tired he looked. There were dark circles under his eyes and lines of stress around his mouth. "You don't understand the world I live in," he said quietly. "These people, the Castellis, they don't play by normal rules. They would hurt you to hurt me." "But why would hurting me hurt you? We barely know each other." Marco ran a hand through his hair, messing it up in a way that made him look more human, less like the powerful man in the expensive suit. "Because they think you matter to me." "Do I?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. He looked at me for a long moment. "Yes," he said finally. "You do." I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me was scared of what it meant. Another part, a part that was growing stronger every day, was thrilled. "Stay here," he said. "Just for a little while. Let things cool down. Then you can go back to your life, if that's what you want." "And if it's not what I want?" A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Then we'll figure something else out." That was the beginning of my strange new life in Marco's world. Days turned into a week, then 2. I slept in the guest room with its cloud-soft sheets. I ate meals cooked by Marco's chef. Foods I'd never tried before, with names I couldn't pronounce. I swam in the pool that overlooked the city, warm blue water that seemed to hang in the air. And I got to know Marco Ricci. Not just the hard businessman or the dangerous family leader, but the man underneath. He loved old books and kept first editions locked in glass cases. He played the piano late at night when he thought everyone was asleep. Sad songs that drifted through the big house. He knew the name of every person who worked for him and asked about their families. Sometimes he would disappear for hours, coming back with that tight look around his eyes that I was learning meant trouble. Sometimes men in dark suits would come to the house for meetings behind closed doors. I didn't ask questions about those times. I was starting to understand that there were parts of Marco's life I was better off not knowing about. But there were good times too. Dinners on the terrace under the stars, drives along the coast in his sleek black car, talks that lasted until the sun came up, about books and dreams and the places we wanted to see. "I've never met anyone like you," He told me one night as we sat by the pool, the water glowing blue in the darkness. You're not afraid to speak your mind. Should I be? I asked. He laughed, a rich sound that made me smile. Most people are afraid to disagree with me. I'm not most people. No, he said softly. You're not. On my third week at Marco's house, Vito found me reading in the garden. His cold eyes watched me over the top of my book. You shouldn't get too comfortable here, he said without greeting. I closed my book. Excuse me? This isn't your world, Ms. Wilson. You don't belong here. His words stung, maybe because a part of me feared they were true. Marco invited me to stay. Marco is distracted by you, and in our business, distractions are dangerous. Vito stepped closer, his voice dropping. People are starting to talk. They're wondering who you are, what hold you have on him. The longer you stay, the worse it gets. I stood up, not wanting him to tower over me. I think that's between me and Marco. Is it? Vito's eyes narrowed. Do you know what we had to give up to make peace with the Castellis? What it cost to keep you safe? Ask him sometime. He walked away before I could respond, leaving me shaken. What had Marco given up? What price had he paid because of me? That afternoon, a woman came to the house. I was in the kitchen making tea when I heard voices in the hall, Marco's deep rumble and a woman's sharp tones. I moved closer to the door to listen. Putting everyone at risk, the woman was saying. First the deal with Castelli. Now this? The family is questioning your judgment, Marco. The family will do as I say, Marco answered, his voice hard. Even your father would have known better than to let an outsider get this close. My father isn't here anymore. I'm in charge now. And what happens when she learns too much? When she becomes a liability? There was a long pause. That's not going to happen. You can't know that. She doesn't belong in this life. That's not your decision to make, Elena. No, but it is yours, and you need to make it soon, before someone else makes it for you. I backed away from the door, my heart pounding. Elena's words echoed Vito's. I didn't belong here. I was putting Marco at risk. His own people were turning against him because of me. I was still standing in the kitchen when Marco found me. One look at my face told him I'd heard. Elena doesn't speak for everyone, he said. But she's right, isn't she? I'm causing problems for you. Marco stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, spicy and warm. My life has always had problems, Emma. At least, now it has something good too. Vito said you had to give something up, to make peace with the Castellis. A shadow crossed Marco's face. It was nothing I wasn't willing to pay. Tell me, I need to know. He sighed. We gave them some territory downtown. A few businesses. It's just money, Emma. It's not important. But I could tell from his eyes that it was important. That it had cost him more than just money. It had cost him respect, power. Maybe even put him in danger. That night, as I lay in my beautiful guest room, I made a decision. I couldn't stay here. In this house, in this world. I was putting Marco at risk. I was causing problems between him and his family. And sooner or later, someone would decide I knew too much to be allowed to walk away. I would leave tomorrow, go back to my old life, back to answering phones and living in my tiny apartment, back to being nobody special. But even as I made this plan, a voice in my head whispered, could I really go back? Now that I'd seen this other world? Now that I'd met Marco Ricci? Now that I was falling in love with him? The thought hit me like a punch to the stomach. Love. Was that what this feeling was? This mix of excitement and fear and longing? This need to be near him, to know everything about him? If it was love, it was the most dangerous kind, the kind that could get us both killed. I didn't leave the next day. Or the day after that. Every time I packed my bag, something stopped me. A look from Marco. A touch of his hand on mine at dinner. The way he said my name. Like it was something precious. But the warnings from Vito and Elena echoed in my mind. I didn't belong in this world. I was putting Marco at risk. I needed to go back to my old life. On my 4th week at Marco's house, I finally got the courage to tell him. We were having breakfast on the terrace, the morning sun warm on my skin. Marco was reading the paper, a small frown on his face as he sipped his coffee. I need to go home, I said. He looked up, his dark eyes finding mine. Is something wrong? Are you not comfortable here? It's not that. I pushed my plate away. No longer hungry. It's just, this isn't my life, Marco. I have a job, an apartment. I can't hide here forever. His face went still, like a mask sliding into place. You're not hiding. You're my guest. For how long? Another week? A month? A year? When does it end? He set down his paper. Why does it have to end? The question hung between us. I could feel my heart beating in my throat. Because this isn't real, I said finally. This house, these clothes you bought me, the fancy dinners. None of it is real. Not for someone like me. And what kind of person are you, Emma Wilson? There was an edge to his voice now. I'm nobody. Just a normal person with a normal life. Marco stood up, pushing his chair back with a scrape that made me jump. Is that really what you think? That you're nobody? Compared to you? Yes. I could feel tears building behind my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. You live in this whole other world. You have power and money and people who do whatever you say. I answer phones for a living. And you think that makes you less than me? He moved closer, towering over me. You think I care about what job you have? Your family cares, I shot back. Vito, Elena, they all think I don't belong here. And they're right. Something flashed in Marco's eyes. You've been talking to Vito and Elena? They've been talking to me, warning me. Marco's hands curled into fists at his sides. They had no right. They're trying to protect you. From me. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Protect me? I don't need protection, Emma. I need... He stopped, running a hand through his hair. I need you to trust me. To believe that I know what I'm doing. I do trust you, but this isn't about trust. It's about reality. I stood up too, needing to be on the same level. The reality is that I'm getting too deep into a world I don't understand, a dangerous world. I would never let anything happen to you. His voice was fierce. I know. But what about you? What happens to you if you keep putting me first? If you keep making deals to protect me? Marco's jaw tightened. That's my concern, not yours. It is my concern. I care about what happens to you. The words came out before I could stop them. I took a breath, trying to steady myself. Look, I'm grateful for everything you've done, but I need to go back to my life. And what if I don't want you to go? His voice was low, almost a whisper. My heart did a flip in my chest. Why would you want me to stay? Marco stepped closer, so close I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. You know why. I did know. I could see it in his face, feel it in the way he looked at me. The same thing I felt when I looked at him. But I couldn't say it. Couldn't admit it, even to myself. I'm leaving tomorrow, I said instead. I've made up my mind. Marco looked at me for a long moment, then nodded once. I'll have Tony drive you. He turned and walked away, his back straight and stiff. I spent the day packing my things, my heart heavy in my chest. The beautiful dresses Marco had bought me, I left hanging in the closet. They belonged to this world, not mine. I took only what I had brought with me, stuffing everything into my small suitcase. That night, Marco didn't come to dinner. Maria said he was working late at one of his restaurants. I ate alone at the big table, the food tasting like ashes in my mouth. In the morning, Tony was waiting with the car. Marco was nowhere to be seen. I told myself it was better this way. No goodbyes, no last looks that might make me change my mind. The drive to my apartment felt like going backwards in time. The streets grew narrower, the buildings older and more worn. When we pulled up outside my building, it looked smaller than I remembered. "Mr. Ricci wanted you to have this," Tony said, handing me an envelope as I got out of the car. Inside was a key and another of Marco's plain business cards with the same phone number. On the back, written in strong black ink, "If you ever need me. For anything." I watched the black car drive away, then turned to face my building. The front step was cracked, the paint peeling around the door. Inside, the hallway smelled of old cooking and cleaning products. My apartment key stuck in the lock, just like it always had. Everything was exactly as I had left it. The leak in the bathroom ceiling, the sagging couch, the dying cactus on the windowsill. But it all looked different to me now. Smaller, duller, like a faded photograph. I unpacked my few things and sat on the edge of my bed, the silence of the apartment pressing in around me. No Maria bringing coffee, no chef preparing dinner, no pool overlooking the city, no Marco. I picked up my phone and called Jen. "Emma, oh my God, where have you been? I got your note, but you never called. I was so worried." "I'm sorry," I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "It's a long story. I'm home now. You'd better come over tonight and tell me everything." "I will," I promised, though I had no idea what I would say. How could I explain Marco Ricci? How could I explain what had happened between us? I went back to work the next day. Mr. Hartman barely looked up when I walked in. "Coffee, black, 1 sugar," he said, like I hadn't been gone for a month. I fell back into my old routine, answering phones, filing papers, getting coffee, eating dinner alone, watching old shows on my laptop. But it all felt like I was playing a part in a play. Like none of it was real. The real world was Marco's world. The world I had left behind. At night, I would lie in my bed, listening to the drip of water into the bucket in the bathroom, and think about Marco. Was he playing the piano? Was he sitting on the terrace looking at the stars? Was he thinking about me? A week after I came home, I was walking back from the grocery store when I noticed a black car parked across the street. It wasn't Marco's car, but it was the same kind. A man sat inside, reading a newspaper. When he saw me looking, he quickly drove away. The next day, I saw another black car. And the day after that. They never stayed long, just long enough to let me know they were there. Watching. I called the number on Marco's card. "Yes?" The gruff voice answered. "Are Marco's men following me?" I asked. "Mr. Ricci wanted to make sure you were safe. I need to talk to him. I'll pass along the message." But Marco didn't call. Days passed, then another week. Every day I looked for his car outside my building. Every night I checked my phone for missed calls. Nothing. I started to wonder if it had all been a dream. The house on the hill, the man who had walked into my life because of a wrong number. Then, on a rainy Tuesday night, exactly 1 month after I'd left Marco's house, someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole, my heart racing. But it wasn't Marco. It was a woman in a police uniform. Detective Reyes, according to the badge she held up. "Emma Wilson? I need to ask you some questions about Marco Ricci." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Why? What's happened?" "May I come in?" I opened the door, fear making my hands shake. Detective Reyes was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She took in my tiny apartment with a quick glance, then turned those eyes on me. How do you know Marco Ricci? We're friends. The word felt wrong in my mouth. Too small for what Marco and I had been to each other. Friends. She didn't sound like she believed me. Do you know what your friend does for a living, Ms. Wilson? He runs restaurants and other businesses. Detective Reyes laughed, a short, hard sound. Is that what he told you? She pulled out her phone and showed me a news article. The headline made my stomach drop. Local businessman linked to organized crime. There was a picture of Marco, looking serious in one of his perfect suits. The article called him the suspected head of one of the city's most powerful crime families. I knew he was connected, I said carefully. But connected? She cut me off. Marco Ricci is responsible for half the illegal activity in this city. Drugs, gambling, protection rackets. You name it, he's got a hand in it. I shook my head, not wanting to believe it. No, he's not like that. Did you know 3 men were found dead last week? Shot in the head, execution style. All of them worked for the Castelli family. Her eyes bored into mine. The same family Ricci has been feuding with for months. My legs felt weak. I sank down onto my couch. Marco he couldn't. You don't know him as well as you think you do, Ms. Wilson. Detective Reyes sat down across from me. Help me. Tell me everything you know about Ricci's operations, his businesses, his associates. I can protect you. I stared at her, my mind racing. Was she telling the truth? Was Marco really the monster she described? Had I been blind to who he really was? I need to think, I said finally. This is a lot to take in. Detective Reyes nodded and stood up. I'll be back tomorrow. Think carefully about where your loyalties lie, Ms. Wilson. Ricci wouldn't hesitate to throw you to the wolves if it served his purpose. After she left, I sat in the dark of my apartment, the rain tapping against my window. Detective Reyes's words played over and over in my mind. But so did memories of Marco, the way he looked at me, the way he protected me. The sadness in his eyes when I told him I was leaving. Who was Marco Ricci really? And who was I, to be caught between worlds like this? I didn't know the answers, but I knew I needed to find out, for both our sakes. I didn't sleep that night. I paced my small apartment, Detective Reyes's words mixing with memories of Marco. Had I been foolish? Had I seen only what I wanted to see? The rain tapped against my windows like tiny fingers, the sound growing stronger as the storm picked up. By morning, I had made up my mind. I needed to talk to Marco, face to face. I needed to look into his eyes and ask him about the dead men, about the crimes Detective Reyes had mentioned. I needed to know who he really was. I called the number on his card. Yes? The same gruff voice answered. I need to see Marco, I said. It's important. Mr. Ricci is unavailable. Tell him Emma Wilson needs to see him. Now. There was a pause. I'll pass along the message. Today, I insisted. Or I start talking to Detective Reyes. I heard a sharp intake of breath. I'll tell him. I spent the day waiting, jumping every time the phone rang. It was always someone else. Jen, wondering if I wanted to get coffee. My mom, checking in. The landlord, asking about the rent. As evening fell, I began to think Marco wasn't coming. Maybe he didn't care what I told the police. Maybe Detective Reyes was right about him. Then, at 8:42 p.m., there was a knock at my door. Not Marco's usual sharp, confident knock. This one was softer, almost hesitant. I looked through the peephole. It was Vito, Marco's right-hand man. His face was grim. I opened the door. Where's Marco? You need to come with me, Vito said. Now. I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's going on. Vito's cold eyes met mine. Marco's been taken. The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Taken? By who? The Castellis. 3 hours ago. Vito glanced down the hallway. We don't have time for this. Every minute counts. Why would they take him? I thought you had a deal with them. We did. Until someone gave the police evidence linking Marco to those 3 dead Castelli men. Vito's eyes narrowed. Someone like that detective who visited you. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't tell her anything. I wouldn't. Maybe not. But Castelli thinks you did. And now he has Marco. Fear gripped my heart like a cold hand. What will they do to him? Vito didn't answer, but his silence told me everything I needed to know. How can I help? I asked. We think we know where they're holding him. An old warehouse by the docks that belongs to the Castelli family. But we can't get close without being seen. And I can? Vito nodded. They don't know what you look like. You could get inside, find out where exactly they're keeping him. That's crazy. I'm not a spy. You're all we have right now. Vito's voice softened slightly. He would do it for you. I knew he was right. Marco would walk through fire for me, had already given up so much to keep me safe. Now it was my turn. Let me get my coat. The drive to the docks was tense and silent. Rain lashed against the car windows, turning the world outside into a blur of wet lights. Vito gave me a small device. Put this in your ear, he said. We'll be able to hear everything around you, and you'll be able to hear us. What's the plan? I asked, sliding the tiny earpiece in. You go in the front door. Say you're looking for work. The Castellis use the warehouse as a cover for their shipping business. They're always hiring office help. And then what? Get as much information as you can about the layout. Where they might be keeping Marco. How many men they have inside. Then get out. We'll handle the rest. My hands were shaking as we pulled up 2 blocks from the warehouse. Rain soaked through my thin jacket as I walked the last stretch alone. The warehouse loomed ahead, a massive shadow against the night sky. Light glowed from a few windows, but most were dark. I took a deep breath and pushed open the front door. A small office area sat empty, a desk with a computer the only furniture. A door behind it led deeper into the warehouse. As I hesitated, wondering what to do next, a man appeared in the doorway. Can I help you? He asked, his eyes suspicious. I heard you might be hiring, I stammered. For office work? The man frowned. At 9 o'clock at night? In this rain? I really need a job, I said, letting my voice break a little. I can start right away. The man studied me for a long moment. Wait here, he said finally, and disappeared back through the door. Good, Vito's voice said in my ear. Now look around, see if there's anything useful. I moved quickly to the desk, scanning papers, looking for anything that might help. A blueprint of the warehouse lay partially hidden under a stack of folders. I slid it out, my eyes taking in the layout. The building was huge, with many small rooms along the back wall. Any of them could be holding Marco. The door opened again, and I quickly pushed the blueprint back. The man returned with another older man whose face seemed vaguely familiar. This is Mr. Castelli, the first man said. My heart jumped into my throat. Castelli himself. The man Marco had been fighting with for months. The man who now held Marco's life in his hands. Castelli looked me up and down, his eyes cold and calculating. So you want a job, do you? Yes, sir, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What's your name? Emma, I said, before I could think better of it. Something flashed in Castelli's eyes. Emma what? I hesitated for a split second. Emma Taylor. I used Jen's last name, praying he wouldn't notice my pause. Emma Taylor, he repeated slowly. You know, it's funny. I had a meeting with a man tonight who mentioned an Emma, but her last name wasn't Taylor. My blood turned to ice. He knew. Somehow, he knew who I was. I don't know what you mean, I said. Castelli smiled, a smile that never reached his eyes. I think you do. Emma Wilson. In my ear, I heard Vito curse. Get out of there, now! But it was too late. The first man grabbed my arm, twisting it behind my back. Pain shot through my shoulder. Bring her, Castelli ordered, turning back through the door. Let's see if she can convince our guest to be more cooperative. They dragged me through dark hallways, the smell of seawater and oil growing stronger. We stopped at a heavy metal door. Castelli unlocked it and nodded to the man holding me. He shoved me inside and I stumbled to my knees on a cold concrete floor. Emma? The voice was hoarse, barely recognizable. But I knew it. I looked up. Marco sat tied to a chair in the center of the room. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut. Blood stained his once white shirt. But his good eye widened when he saw me, filling with something between hope and horror. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Castelli walked in behind me, smiling that cold smile. Isn't this touching? The crime boss and his little secretary, together again. Let her go, Castelli, Marco said, his voice stronger now. She has nothing to do with this. Oh, I think she has everything to do with it. Castelli circled around to stand behind Marco. She's the reason you've been making mistakes. The reason you gave up good territory to protect her. The reason you've become weak. I'll give you whatever you want, Marco said. Money, territory, all of it. Just let her walk out of here. Castelli laughed. I already have everything I want. You, broken and begging. Her, seeing what you really are. He pulled a gun from inside his jacket and pressed it to Marco's head. And now I'll have the satisfaction of making her watch you die. No, I screamed, lunging forward. Two men grabbed me, holding me back. I fought against them, tears streaming down my face. Please don't hurt him. Marco's eye found mine. In that moment, everything else fell away. The warehouse, Castelli, the gun at Marco's head. All I could see was Marco, and all the things we'd never said to each other. It's okay, Emma, he said softly. Everything's going to be okay. How touching, Castelli mocked. Any last words, Ricci? Marco kept his gaze on me. I should have told you sooner, Emma. I should have... A massive crash cut him off. The whole building seemed to shake. Shouts echoed from outside the room. What the hell was that? Castelli demanded, turning toward the door. More crashes, gunshots. The men holding me loosened their grip, looking to Castelli for orders. Boss? What do we do? Castelli's face hardened. Stay here. Watch them. He hurried from the room, gun in hand. The moment he was gone, I twisted free from the distracted men and ran to Marco. I pulled at the ropes binding his hands, but they were tied too tight. In my pocket, Marco whispered. Left side. I reached into his suit pocket and found a small knife. Of course. Marco was always prepared. I sliced through the ropes as quickly as I could. We need to hurry, I said. Vito and his men are here. Marco stood up, wincing in pain. You came for me, he said, wonder in his voice. You risked your life for me. Of course I did. Why? I looked into his battered face at the man I'd been running from and running to for weeks now. Because I love you, I said simply. And I don't care who you are or what you've done. I just want you safe. Marco touched my face, a gentle brush of his fingers against my cheek. I love you too, Emma Wilson. From the moment you answered that wrong number, the door burst open and Vito rushed in, gun raised. Behind him, more of Marco's men followed, their faces grim and determined. Boss! Thank God, Vito said. We need to move. Castelli's men are regrouping. Marco nodded, taking the gun Vito offered him. He turned to me. Stay close to me. Whatever happens, don't let go of my hand. I took his hand, feeling his strong fingers wrap around mine. Together, we moved through the chaos of the warehouse, gunshots and shouts echoing around us. Marco led the way, his body shielding mine, his grip firm and reassuring. In that moment, I knew I had made my choice. For better or worse, my life was tied to Marco Ricci's now. And no matter what came next, the danger, the lies, the darkness of his world, I would face it by his side. As we burst through the doors into the rainy night, Marco pulled me close, his arms strong around me despite his injuries. I won't let you go again, he whispered against my hair. Never again. Promise? I asked. With everything I am, he answered. And I believed him. 6 months have passed since that rainy night at the warehouse. 6 months since Marco and I ran through gunfire hand in hand. 6 months of learning to live in a world between worlds. I still remember the drive away from the warehouse, squeezed into the back of Vito's car with Marco's blood soaking into my clothes. He wouldn't go to a hospital. Too many questions, too many police. Instead, we went to a small clinic where a doctor asked no questions as he stitched Marco's wounds and set his broken finger. You need rest, the doctor told him. Marco just laughed. Later, I stayed by his side as he worked through the night, making calls, giving orders, rebuilding what Castelli had tried to tear down. I watched as his men came and went, their faces changing when they saw me sitting next to him. Not just surprise anymore. Respect. I was the woman who had walked into Castelli's warehouse to save their boss. The woman Marco Ricci loved. That night changed everything between us. There were no more doubts, no more running away. I knew who Marco was, all of him, the good and the bad, and I had made my choice. Come home, he said when the sun began to rise. I knew he didn't mean my tiny apartment with its leaky ceiling and dying cactus. He meant his house on the hill, the house that somehow had begun to feel like my home too. Yes, I said. We live there now, Marco and I. The glass and stone house with the view of the city. I sleep in his bed, not the guest room. I swim in his pool on hot days. I sit beside him at dinner. But my life isn't just luxury and comfort. I've had to learn the rules of Marco's world. Who to talk to, who to avoid, what questions to ask, what secrets to keep, when to look the other way. I don't work at the law firm anymore. Instead, I help run one of Marco's legitimate businesses, a small bookstore downtown. It's my space, away from the darker parts of his life. He comes to visit me there sometimes, browsing the shelves and chatting with customers who have no idea that the handsome man in the expensive suit controls half the city. Not everything has been easy. Marco's family, his organization, still has mixed feelings about me. Vito has warmed up a little since the warehouse rescue, but Elena still watches me with suspicious eyes. Some of the older members whisper when I enter a room. They think I've made Marco soft, weak. But I've seen how Marco rules his world. There's nothing soft about the decisions he makes, the orders he gives. He's a good man in a bad business, walking a line that would break someone with less strength. I don't pretend to like everything he does, but I understand why he does it. And I love him, not despite who he is, but because of it. Detective Reyes still comes around sometimes, asking questions, watching the bookstore. She knows I'm with Marco now, knows I've chosen my side, but she keeps trying. It's not too late, she told me last week, flipping through a book she had no intention of buying. You could still help us, still get out. I just smiled and rang up a customer's purchase. I'm exactly where I want to be, detective. My mom came to visit last month. I was nervous about her meeting Marco, about what she would think of the house, of my new life. But Marco charmed her, as he charms everyone when he wants to. He cooked dinner for us himself, pasta from his grandmother's recipe. By the end of the night, my mom was laughing at his stories and asking when we would visit her. "She doesn't know, does she?" Marco asked after she had gone to bed in one of the guest rooms. "About your business?" "No." I leaned against him on the terrace, looking out at the city lights. "Would you want her to?" He was quiet for a long time. "No," he said finally. "I want her to think I'm good enough for you." "You are good enough for me." I took his face in my hands. "You're exactly who I want." Last week, Castelli's body was found in the harbor. The news reports called it a gangland killing. Marco didn't tell me if he was responsible, and I didn't ask. There are still parts of his life he keeps separate from me. Shadows he doesn't want touching our home. I've learned to live with the not knowing. Sometimes it's better that way. But there are no shadows between us when we're alone together. Marco tells me things he's never told anyone. About his childhood in a family where power was everything. About the weight of taking over when his father died. About his dreams of making his business entirely legitimate one day. "It won't be easy," he says. "The family has been this way for generations." "Nothing worth having is easy," I tell him, and he smiles that smile that still makes my heart beat faster. We were married 2 months ago, in a small ceremony on the terrace of our house, just family and close friends. Jen was my maid of honor, still a bit starstruck by Marco and his world. Vito stood beside Marco, his cold face softened for once by something almost like happiness. My mom cried. Even Elena smiled when Marco kissed me. The ring on my finger still feels strange sometimes, the diamond so big it catches on everything. But I'm getting used to it, just as I'm getting used to being Mrs. Ricci, to the power that comes with the name, and the danger. There have been 2 attempts on Marco's life since the warehouse. One bullet grazed his shoulder as we were leaving a restaurant. Another time, someone tried to run our car off the road. I was driving that day. Marco taught me how to handle the car, how to lose a tail. Just one of the many new skills I've had to learn in this life. "Are you ever sorry?" Marco asked me last night as we lay in bed. "That you answered that wrong number? That you opened your door to me?" I turned to look at him, at the face I've come to know better than my own. The scar above his eye from the warehouse. The lines that deepen when he smiles. The eyes that still look at me with wonder, as if he can't believe I chose him. "Never," I said. "Not for a single minute." And it's true. For all the danger, for all the complications, for all the things I've had to accept and adapt to, I've never regretted answering that call. Never regretted letting Marco into my apartment and into my heart. My old life seems like a dream now, something that happened to someone else. The lonely girl in the tiny apartment, setting out buckets to catch the rain. The invisible woman bringing coffee to men who didn't know her name. She feels so far away from who I am now. Now I'm Emma Ricci. I stand beside one of the most powerful men in the city. I know secrets that could destroy lives. I live in a beautiful house on a hill. I'm loved deeply, completely, by a man who would burn the world down to keep me safe. I'm not invisible anymore. Today is the 6-month anniversary of the warehouse rescue. Marco has planned something special, though he won't tell me what. That's one thing that hasn't changed. He still loves to surprise me. As I wait for him to come home, I stand on our terrace, looking out at the city spread below like a blanket of lights. Somewhere out there is my old apartment building. Somewhere is the office where I used to work. Somewhere is the warehouse where I finally admitted I loved Marco. All these places that make up the map of how I got here. I hear Marco's car in the driveway, the sound of his key in the door. My heart still jumps when he walks in, tall and handsome in his perfect suit. He crosses the room to me, takes me in his arms, kisses me like he's been gone for weeks instead of hours. "Are you ready for your surprise?" he asks, his eyes bright with excitement. "Always," I say, and I mean it. I'm ready for whatever comes next in this unexpected life of ours, the good and the bad, the joy and the danger. Because when Marco Ricci dialed the wrong number that rainy night, he changed everything. And I wouldn't have it any other way.